Planet Velmora, the cradle of stars. Once a thriving jewel of the galaxy, Velmora was torn apart by a brutal war between the United Human Front and the Zenthari Empire. In the ruins of broken temples and forests scorched black, one soldier marched with purpose through the twilight haze, carrying the fate of two civilizations in his arms. Staff Sergeant Jason Cole, gritty, battered, and breathing through pain, was cradling something fragile, precious, and utterly alien. A young Zenthari girl with glowing lavender eyes, unconscious and shivering from the cold. Her name was Lyriel. She was 10 years old, and she was the missing daughter of the alien Queen Belisari. Jason had no orders to retrieve her. His squad had been wiped out. He should have left the girl behind when he found her in the ruins of a collapsed bunker. But something deeper than duty had taken root in his heart, something that whispered, "You don't leave a child to die." Even if she wasn't human. 3 days earlier, the bunker collapsed. The firefight had been chaos. Jason's platoon was pinned between alien artillery and plasma drones. As the smoke cleared, he alone remained breathing, buried in a trench of scorched metal and blood. That's when he heard the whimpering. Digging through the rubble, he uncovered a stasis pod, cracked, leaking coolant. Inside, curled up like a fallen star, was Lyriel. At first, she screamed at him, words in a language he barely understood. Her hands flared with unstable biolight. But Jason didn't raise his gun. He simply knelt and offered his jacket. With trembling fingers, she accepted it. She was alone, frightened, and no older than his niece back on Earth. "She's just a kid," Jason muttered. The war had taken enough. The journey to the Hive capital. The alien capital was over 60 miles away, deep behind enemy lines. The jungle between was alive with Zenthari war beasts, drones, and wild plasma storms. Jason knew every step could be his last. He carried Lyriel on his back when she couldn't walk, shared his rations, sang old Earth lullabies at night to ease her nightmares. In return, she started calling him Theros, a word he didn't understand at first, until her translator flickered to life. "Theros means protector," she whispered one night, leaning into his shoulder. Jason looked up at the stars, the same stars humans and Zenthari fought over like children bickering over toys. Maybe this girl was a future without war. Meanwhile, the throne of Belisari. Queen Belisari, ruler of the Zenthari Hive worlds, sat upon her obsidian throne, heart torn with grief. It had been weeks since Lyriel vanished during an ambush near the border. The hive mind murmured with guilt and fear, but Belisari silenced them all. She had felt her daughter's pulse go faint, like a distant star dimming. "I will burn 10,000 suns," she had sworn, "if my daughter is lost." Her generals begged her to focus on the war. She ignored them. All battles were meaningless without Lyriel's light. Belisari was no longer a queen. She was a mother in mourning. Back to Jason and Lyriel, final miles. As they neared the border of the capital's defense dome, Lyriel collapsed. Her alien biology had resisted Earth food too long. She was dying. Jason's desperation pushed him beyond human limits. Through thorn-covered ravines, across poisoned rivers, he marched, screaming her name, begging the jungle to let her live. By the time he stumbled into the capital's outer watch posts, he was delirious and drenched in blood. Weapons aimed. Drones swarmed. Zenthari guards closed in. "Wait, wait," he bellowed, raising his hands. "Lyriel, I'm here to bring back Lyriel." The guards froze. One scanned the girl's biosignature. Their eyes widened. They recognized the queen's daughter. Then came the order, direct from the queen herself. "Bring him to me. Immediately." The throne hall, a mother's agony. Queen Belisari stood tall, radiant in shimmering robes of silver and deep amethyst. Her eyes, fierce as burning moons, locked onto the human as he staggered through the grand doors with Lyriel in his arms. Jason dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I didn't know what else to do." She needed help. The queen rushed forward, dignity forgotten, and cradled her daughter. Zenthari medics buzzed around them, scanning, healing. As Lyriel's body began to glow with returning vitality, her small fingers twitched, and her eyes fluttered open. "Mom," she whispered. Belisari let out a sound that shattered the silence. Not a cry of royalty, but a wail of pure, unfiltered love. "Mom, I'm back. The Rose saved me." Lyriel turned her gaze to Jason. "He brought me home." The queen looked at the man who had risked everything, not for diplomacy, not for reward, but because of compassion. Her glowing eyes softened. Tears fell, not just hers. A treaty signed in blood and mercy. In the following days, Jason recovered in the healing chambers of the royal palace. Lyriel never left his side. Word spread like fire. A human soldier saved the heir to the Zenthari throne. Peace talks that had collapsed months earlier were reignited. For the first time, humans and Zenthari wept together, for their dead, for their mistakes, and for the children who still had a chance. Queen Belisari addressed the Galactic Council days later. "We have seen what war makes of us. But through the eyes of a child and the heart of a soldier, we are reminded of what we can become." She paused. "And to the Rose, protector of the air, I offer my eternal thanks." Jason, in full dress uniform, bowed awkwardly as thousands of aliens hummed in harmony, a sign of highest honor. Later, a garden reborn. Under twin moons, Lyriel and Jason sat by the newly planted peace tree in the capital's central garden. "You'll stay?" she asked, munching on something vaguely like an earth apple. Jason smiled. "I'll stay." "You're my Theros," she said proudly. "And someday I'll be queen. I'll need you then too." Jason chuckled. "Guess I better start practicing my bow."
"No," she said.
"No bows. Only hugs." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, the galaxy felt quiet. Epilogue: The Legacy of the Rose. Historians would later say the Galactic Peace Accord began with a soldier's march, a child's smile, and a queen's tears. Statues were erected of Jason Cole and Lyriel, the soldier and the heir, standing side by side, facing the future. They called it the day the war ended. But Lyriel always remembered it more simply. It was the day she ran into her mother's arms and cried, "Mom, I'm back. He saved me." And her mother cried too, not as a queen, but as a mother who had almost lost everything, and found it again, thanks to a human heart. Outer Rim, Planet Virilia, War Zone Perimeter. The sky burned violet above the battlefield, remnants of anti-air fire still falling like ashes. Human soldier Lance Corporal Adam Reeve knelt behind the fractured wing of a downed Virilian scout ship, clutching his plasma rifle and trying to calm the trembling figure beside him. A small alien girl, no older than 10. Her deep black eyes blinked up at him, shimmering with tears and starlight. Her skin was translucent amethyst, marked with faint bioluminescent lines that pulsed with fear. "You're going to be okay," Adam whispered, brushing dust off her shoulder. "I promise." She nodded slowly, though she didn't understand his words, not in the literal sense. But she understood his voice, his warmth. He had shielded her from crossfire, dragged her from the wreckage of a skirmish, and now, even surrounded by enemies and chaos, he guarded her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. And maybe she was. 12 hours earlier, Adam's squad had been deployed to Sector 9 to investigate strange activity in the no-man's land between human and Virelian lines. It was supposed to be a ghost zone neutral ground, but what they found wasn't a trap or an ambush. It was a ship, small Virelian civilian model, shot down probably by a rogue drone. Inside, he found her. A child. Alone. Frightened. Command wanted him to leave her. "We're not running a daycare, Reeve," barked Sergeant Calden. "Either she's bait, or she's just another bug." But Adam had stared into her terrified eyes and couldn't walk away. He didn't know her name. Virelian spoke in harmonic frequencies, but she had pointed to herself and made a soft chiming sound. Alani. He'd risked court-martial to get her to safety. But safety was relative in a war where humans and Virelians had been killing each other for years. Present moment. Heavy boots crunched nearby. Adam held his breath and pulled Alani closer. She pressed her glowing forehead to his chest, shaking. Human soldiers. Friendly, but dangerous to her. "Reeve," called a voice. It was Calden again. Adam stood slowly, shielding the girl. "She's just a kid," he said, teeth clenched. Calden narrowed his eyes. "You disobeyed a direct order. She's the Virelian Queen's daughter. I checked her genetics through my bioscanner. That's why the Virelian forces are holding back. They're looking for her." Calden's jaw dropped. "Are you telling me you found the princess of the enemy empire?" "She's not the enemy. She's a scared child. She got separated during evacuation. Their forces aren't advancing. They're scanning for her. If we return her, we could end this war. Or they'll shoot us the moment we show our faces," Calden growled. Adam met his gaze. "Or we save a child and prove we're not monsters."
Silence.
Then, reluctantly, Calden clicked his get command. "We're sending a message to the Queen of Virelia." 3 hours later, the border expanse. A sterile flatland had been cleared between the opposing armies. A ceasefire, tentative, fragile, allowed a single transport to land. Adam stood beside it, dressed in ceremonial armor, Alani's small hand clutching his gloved one. Across the field, the Virelian Queen descended from her hovering throne ship. Queen Syrinx was 10 feet tall, draped in flowing light-born silk, her lavender skin pulsing with maternal agony. Her tendrils drooped, dim and desperate. Her people stood behind her, tense. Adam swallowed. Every eye, human and alien, watched. Alani let go of his hand. Slowly, tentatively, she stepped forward. The queen froze. A single high-pitched chime rang from the child's throat, the same sound Adam had heard before. "Alani," the queen whispered, her voice like wind through crystal. She dropped to her knees, letting her staff fall. "Mom," the girl cried in halting, echoing English. And then she ran. Adam stepped aside. The queen caught her daughter in her arms, lifting her into the air and pressing her close, sobbing in harmonic tones that made the grass tremble. Tears streamed down Adam's face. He didn't care who saw. Behind him, Calden muttered, "I'll be damned." Aftermath. It wasn't instant.
Peace took time.
But that moment, that reunion, changed the course of history. Negotiations began within days. The Virelians withdrew their forward assault. Human diplomats opened dialogue. For the first time in years, the war machine slowed. Adam was summoned weeks later to stand before a joint council of human and Virelian leaders. The queen herself approached him, flanked by interpreters and envoys. She bowed deeply and spoke through the translator. "You saved my daughter. Not because she was royalty, not because you sought power, but because she was a child in need. You reminded us of something we had forgotten, that empathy survives even in the shadow of war." Adam didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. Alani ran to him again, this time with laughter instead of fear. She hugged his leg like an old friend. He knelt, smiled, and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. I'm glad you made it home, kid. 2 years later, Peace Summit commemoration. The war was over. Statues were built. One in particular stood at the center of the Peace Garden on Virelia Prime, a human soldier kneeling, hand extended, with a young alien girl reaching back. Alani stood beside it, now a little older, dressed in a peacekeeper's robe. She gave speeches, translated between species, and served as the living symbol of what could be, of what was. Adam attended the unveiling quietly, standing at the back in civilian clothes. She spotted him. Without hesitation, she broke from the crowd, ran to him, and flung her arms around his waist. Uncle Adam, she beamed. He laughed, picking her up. Look at you, all grown up. You still cry easy, she teased. He smirked. Don't push it, kid. They stood together under the statue, one that told the story of a war, a rescue, and a bond that rewrote history. And in a moment shared by two worlds, tears fell again. Not of sorrow, but of healing. Title refrain. Mom, I'm back. He saved me. Those were the words Alani had shouted when she ran to her mother, a phrase now etched in both languages on monuments across 2 planets. A human soldier had defied orders to save one child. That act, simple yet brave, ended a galactic war. And it all began with compassion.